3, 2, 1.
Hi there and welcome to another edition of Who Moved the Market. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay and back with me on the show is Vivek Iyer. Now, Vivek, of course, is our power man and he tracks that sector so carefully. You must have remembered. If you haven't, by the way, do check out the conversation that we had on smart meters because that was a fantastic one. Got some great feedback for it as well. Vivek, today we want to know more about why some of these power stocks are buzzing. So let me tell viewers that today, right from the morning, NTPC has actually been the best performing stock on the Nifty, almost 4-5% higher. The other one that's rallied quite a bit as well is SJVN. So we're going to talk about why these stocks are rallying, what is the larger thesis, why is the market excited about them. Vivek, 2 PSU stocks from the power space and some powerful moves last couple of months as well.
Absolutely. So when was the last time you saw PSU utilities moving up or being the top gainers? They are, in fact, you could probably call them the least beta, and you generally pay them for dividend yield, right? You don't pay them for as a growth story. But today you're actually seeing the opposite. So today's trigger, while there are multiple triggers that we'll discuss, the main trigger today has been an initiating coverage report that Goldman Sachs has written on the entire Indian power sector. So what he's saying is that the electricity sector in India is itself going through a generational shift. And what he's saying is that India simultaneously is trying to grow as well as decarbonize. So India is sitting at the cusp of trying to increase power capacity and at the same time becoming clean. And he believes that the two key stocks that are poised to perform very well, number one is NTPC. So they have a buy rating on the stock. It's their top pick. They're saying that in this particular transition, NTPC is going to emerge as the key winner. Company has structural advantage of low cost debt. Companies' ratings are always at high, always at par with the government rating itself, and so that provides a strong moat because other guys have to borrow from the market, right, or at market rates. Other two, rising peak shortages will actually re-rate the legacy thermal business. So both thermal is going to do well. At the same time, Goldman also expects the company to have an inherent advantage as far as the entire renewable space is concerned. And as far as SJVN is concerned, what they're saying is that a company is, at the hub of the entire renewable power space. So exponential RE growth targets backed by low cost of debt. And what they're saying is that commissioning of 2 large plants that under construction should give a boost as far as the near-term earnings are concerned.
So Goldman Sachs getting quite bullish on these two stocks explains today's move. But then these are not just today's moves. That's what, right? Because when you mentioned this report and we decided to do this chat, I just checked the stock history, and SJVN has rallied Satluj Jal Vidyut Nigam, right?
That's right.
SJVN, just remembering the full form as well, in case you're interested. I'm someone who loves to get behind the acronyms to see the full form. So there you go. So SJVN is a stock that has rallied 70% in the last 1 year, and that's not a small thing, wait for 70%, because as you said, this is a PSU, this is a power utility. Usually these are like forgotten stocks, they're dead stocks in the portfolio here and there.
Mainly, keep them in the portfolio for dividend
yield. For the dividend yield, exactly. That's the thesis. But a 70% price appreciation tells you that there is something more that's going on, right, beyond the normal. NTPC also, by the way, that's had a good year as well. Last 1 year, last 12 months. We're talking gains of about 30%. And I don't remember the last time I saw a PSU, power generation stock rise, even in double digits. Forget 30%.
Imagine a thermal power company that's been so out of favor globally. Nobody wants to touch them. ESG companies, companies or investors who have ESG managed stay out of these names. So they typically tend to be underperformers. But the last couple of years, especially NTPC is completely turned around. The narrative is turned around, completely re-rating, and even the ESG ratings are coming up as we discuss a little further.
Absolutely. So let's straight away get to that. Now, NTPC for the longest time obviously has been all about thermal power. That's where the bulk of their capacity is. I know there's a lot of talk now. I think NTPC also wants to go green, and some of these things are happening. Before we get down to NTPC, just recap for our viewers also the larger targets. I mean, there's a bigger mandate there. This is not only about NTPC or any one company deciding suddenly to have a great ESG heart. That's environment, social and governance, the new mandate that most funds around the world are using to go ahead and pick stocks. So it's not just that, but I think we've signed the Paris Accord. So that means we're anyway committed to these targets. Right? What are the targets again?
So, these commitments were made by the Prime Minister himself. They are also known as the COP26 or the Paris Accord. three simple commitments, but very ambitious targets. Okay. Number one, incremental install power capacity, 50% of that by 2030 will be coming in from non-fossil fuel sources.
50% of installed capacity.
Installed power capacity.
Non-coal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then number two, reduce the emissions intensity of the GDP by 45% by 2030. Okay. And lastly, achieve net zero emissions by 2070, which, is not too far away when you're talking about completely getting away from coal or completely getting away from fossil fuels. It's a very tough and a very ambitious target. And we also have to keep in mind that India is looked at as an emerging market. Developed markets took a lot longer to become net zero, and they still haven't reached where they are.
Exactly.
So these are very ambitious targets. And that is why, to put all of this in context, this point of time, Indian power companies are actually striving to do very well. Coming to NTPC.
So let's talk about their capacity first.
Yeah.
Bulk of the capacity is still thermal, the legacy coal.
Yes.
But have they started setting up renewables as well?
So let's have a look at the total installed capacity of NTPC.
Okay.
A little over 70 gigawatts.
Okay.
Largest in India. Now, NTPC has a renewable pipeline of around 17 gigawatts.
17?
Yeah. Out of
overall is 70. 70. Okay.
And out of the 17 that we are discussing, around 4.5 to 5 is under construction, and 12.4, the remainder 12.4 is in various stages of getting into production. So you're actually talking about them LOAs being signed, JVs being signed, all of this is already happening.
So is there a timeline that the street is working with by when, let's say, the first of these renewable capacities comes on stream for NTPC?
The initial ones have started, but in terms of timeline, because there are so many factors that is not in the control of the generating utility, like land acquisition or signing of PPAs or coming up with the actual power price, that is very tough to go ahead and predict. But what we have to watch is NTPC, and it's a stated ambition, and they've told it to us on our channel, is that they want to value unlock in the renewable energy arm.
Right.
So they have something known as NTPC Green Energy, under which all of the
new capacity is coming up.
All of the renewable capacities would be under this particular arm. And they were looking to sell close to 20%, and the target that they had was March 2023. It didn't fructify then, but do not be surprised if you hear
a deal happening.
Either a deal happening or even they could hit the primary markets.
Oh, like an IPO of the renewable arm.
So there have been various reports that have come. These are not confirmed reports, but what he has said on record is that they intend to do value unlocking in some form
in NTPC renewable. So that's straight away one trigger, because everybody wants to have the renewable energy opportunity. That's what a lot of fund managers talk about, that, right?
Absolutely.
The moment you talk what's the next theme, they always talk about sustainability and the green energy transition. So that is a play that you get in NTPC with the renewables portfolio. So that's one element.
Imagine the name of the company, style name is Thermal Power Company.
Thermal Power, National Thermal Power Corporation, going back to my love of full forms of acronyms. So that would be quite something, exactly, the NTPC renewables. That's going to be one kicker, but what's happening overall on their thermal side, NTPC? I mean, anything else to keep in mind with respect to the triggers to watch going forward? And just recap, Goldman's bullish stance comes from the fact that they'll benefit even on the thermal side from the peak deficit, right?
Peak deficit. So, what Goldman says is that, there's going to be an onset of a peak deficit cycle caused by a secular rise as far as peak demand is concerned. So, every year we are talking about power demand rising at par with GDP, and in fact, it generally tends to outstrip the growth in GDP. So, 7%, 8%, 10%, and especially in the months of summer, it's almost in double digits. So, this time, peak summer, you actually saw almost 112% rise on a year-on-year basis, and it happens. It's a seasonal impact, and we've spoken about how sometimes government is forced to go ahead and impose a Section 11.
They take special measures to meet this peak demand.
So Goldman believes that this is now going to be a recurring phenomenon, and they believe that the rising capacity may not be at par with the rising demand. So they believe that, that bodes well for producers in general, and which is why they continue to remain bullish as far as NTPC's thermal arm itself is concerned. The other thing that we need to watch out for is that while we discuss the transition to clean energy, especially a country like India, and especially given the macroeconomic background, where Europe is actually struggling with very high gas costs, and they're not having enough power. India has made it very clear. RK Singh, he's actually mentioned that we will, at all points, actually have the first aim is going to be energy security for India, be it thermal, be it clean energy. So while they stay committed to going green by 2070, they said that at no point of time will they actually will they allow a deficit to be there in terms of demand. So that bodes well for the entire power,
even the
thermal power supply chain. So names like NTPC, names like BHEL, all of these also tend to do well.
Because the thermal power chain in India is still alive and kicking, it's still thriving.
Exactly.
It's not an untouchable space that the Indian government doesn't want to or wants to disincentivize in a big way. That I guess explains
the derating that these names saw, like NTPC and BHEL, because the worry was that there will be no thermal capacity addition. So that is gone out of the way.
Correct. So people have understood that in India, even thermal capacity will continue to sort of move along as we do the shift to renewables. It's going to be a gradual shift where thermal, you can't let go of thermal, right? Because that is still taking care of the bulk of our electricity demand. So that's one aspect. SJVN, the Goldman report mentions that there are new projects also coming up that could drive revenue.
So SJVN, so let's discuss two companies. Let's discuss both SJVN and let's discuss both NHPC. Both of these companies,
Hydropower,
large projects underway, lot of capex that the companies have done. NHPC, every time they come, we ask them, when is the Subansiri lower and upper, going to come on stream. They've had multiple problems in terms of, because these projects are very physically demanding to go ahead and construct. So, lot of the capex is now behind for these guys. So, SJVN, 2 large plants are expected to come on stream, and even for NHPC, there is going to be a similar story. Also, these companies, because they are PSU utilities, manage to get debt at much lower cost compared to the rest of the market. And that Goldman believes is going to be a key trigger.
So, the low cost of borrowings as well.
Low cost of borrowing and on streaming of
new projects, which suddenly sort of, they're a top line kicker straight away because you've got these new plants coming on stream.
Typically, even before the plants are constructed, PPAs are signed. So, it's like it's and regulated industry. So, your ROEs are going to come in, and which is why significant kicker, like I said.
Sure. So interesting to watch. Finally, before we let you go, I'm just saying for the benefit of viewers who didn't catch that episode, and I'm telling you, folks, go back to YouTube, go through our listings, and you'll find that longer conversation on smart meters. It was such an interesting one. But for the benefit of those who missed it, just once again, because we've been discussing this, right? Smart meters have become such an opportunity. There are stocks that have been flying 100%, 200%. Let's recap. What is this whole smart meter business all about, and what's the street view on it?
Okay, so let's talk about a latest IIFL report that's come out. So the report states that state-owned discoms, which are perennially under stress because they have very high dues. What they say is that,
and they have so many losses, transmission losses, A, T, and C as they are called, all these losses. So
aggregate technical and
commercial losses. Yes,
that's right. So 1.4 to 1.5 trillion revenue per annum is actually lost due to billing inefficiencies. And what are these billing inefficiencies? Number one, path theft, and number two, as you mentioned, A, T, and C losses. So now the government, has decided that by FY26 they are going to install close to 250 million smart meters to plug such revenue losses. The opportunity is twofold. Number one, is good for the discoms, and number two, it's good for all of the players who
make these smart meters,
and which explains the kind of moves you've seen in Genus Power and a lot of foreign investors, because Genus Power actually tied up with a foreign company. NTPC, Power Grid have a JV, HPL Electric, Tata Power, all of them are eyeing this opportunity.
But NTPC and Tata Power, they don't make the meters. They will get vendors to make the meters.
They will get vendors to make the meters, but they would take the project under
they'll bid for the projects. Okay, got
so
that.
you may find a third-party vendor actually coming in executing this particular project.
Okay, so there you have it. Lots of names that the street has been really, really excited about, and the power space is really, powered up. I could say, really a buzz. It's lit up. We can say for sure. Power definitely has the market's attention. Well, Vivek, thank you very much once again for joining in and explaining why these power stocks are going up the way they are. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks. So there you have it, your Power Classroom 101. We take your leave on that note. Keep sending us your feedback, comments, queries. Really appreciate it. And we will see you with another theme tomorrow.